The night my family shattered, we decided it was my sister's fault. I was 16 when my father died on a wet October road, and my sister Evelyn walked out our front door and never came back. For 60 years, I believed those two things were the same story. Tonight, on this old kitchen table, under this tired yellow lamp, I have my mother's final letter, the one she wrote about that night. She is gone now. Buried. Flowers already wilting on the grave. And this envelope, this worn, soft-edged envelope with my name written in the handwriting that raised me. This is all that's left of her voice. She wrote on the front, in shaky blue ink. Margaret. For after. After what? After her last breath? After all these years of silence? Tonight, I am finally going to open it. I'm going to read what my mother never dared to say out loud. And I am going to tell you everything about the night our family broke into pieces. What we believed back then. What really happened. And how one final letter can change an entire lifetime of blame. Because here is the promise I make to you, and to myself. By the time we reach the end of this story, you will know exactly what was in her final letter. And why she waited until after her own death to let the truth out. The envelope sits in front of me. The paper has yellowed at the edges. There's a faint ring on the corner where some coffee mug once kissed it, wet and careless. My fingers, they don't look like mine anymore. Veins like little rivers, skin thin as onion paper. They tremble when I touch the flap. The same way they trembled the night my father's name came through the telephone receiver. I could open it right now. You might even want me to. But if you don't understand the lie we lived. The house we built around the wound. The faces and the voices that filled that little two-bedroom home. Then the truth inside this envelope won't mean anything. So let me take you back. Back to that night. Back to the last time our family was almost whole. 30 years earlier than the lines on my hands. 60 years before this letter. There was a house on Maple Street. Our house wasn't much. Peeling white paint, a sagging porch step that squeaked. A kitchen window that always fogged over when Mom boiled potatoes. Inside, it smelled like coffee and starch and the faintest trace of my father's pipe tobacco. That night, the rain came sideways. Not gentle, storybook rain. Hard needles on glass. Wind that made the elm tree outside our window moan like a ship in a storm. I remember the way the kitchen light hummed. The bulb flickering just enough to make your eyes tired. Mom, Ruth, stood at the sink, rinsing plates we'd barely used. Supper sat untouched. Meatloaf going cold, mashed potatoes stiffening at the edges. My little brother Danny, 10 and thin as a broomstick, was at the table, drawing race cars on the back of an old envelope. My sister Evelyn, 20 years old and already halfway out of that house in her mind, leaned against the doorway, arms folded, a small suitcase at her feet. She had on her green dress, the one she'd bought with her own money from the cafe job. Her lipstick a little too red for my mother's taste. Her hair twisted up with a pencil, ready to fall down the first chance it got. "Your father is late," Mom said. She said it like a sentence she'd repeated every night for years. The dishwater sloshed harder with each plate. "Maybe the roads are bad," I offered. She didn't answer. Evelyn watched the window instead. Watched the rain sliding down in long, lonely rivers. The clock on the wall ticked louder than the storm for a moment. Tick. 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 "Mom," Evelyn finally said, "I told you he wasn't coming back straight after work." Mom's shoulders stiffened. "What do you mean you told me?" Evelyn's jaw clenched. She glanced at me, then at Danny. "Can we not do this in front of them?" My heart started to beat faster. Not because of anything I understood. Just that prickling sense kids get when the air in the room changes. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the argument that happened there an hour ago, even if no one said a word? That was our house all that week. Mom slammed the last plate into the drying rack and turned. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of your brother and sister." We don't keep secrets in this family. Funny thing to remember, now. Evelyn laughed, but there was no humor in it. No secrets, huh? She bent down, picked up the little suitcase, and set it on the chair closest to her. The metal latches made a sharp, bright sound when she snapped them open. Inside, I saw neat stacks of clothes. Her worn paperback novel. A photograph of the three of us kids at the lake, half faded. "You're not leaving this house," Mom said. "Actually," Evelyn replied softly, "I am." Danny's pencil stopped midline. The front door rattled then, not from the storm. From a key in the lock. My father, Charles, stepped in smelling of rain and engine grease and something else. Something sharp and sour I wouldn't name until I was older. Whiskey. His coat dripped on the mat. He shook his hat, muttering about the damn weather. Then he saw the suitcase. His eyes moved from that little brown case to my mother's clenched jaw, to Evelyn's straight spine. And something in the room tightened like a wire pulled too far. "Going somewhere?" he said. Nobody answered. The storm pushed at the windows. "Evelyn?" His voice dropped. "I asked you a question." She lifted her chin. "I'm going to Aunt June's for a while." My father laughed, low and ugly. "Like hell you are." He stepped closer, the floorboards under his boots creaking in protest. "Sit down," he ordered. "We're having dinner." "There's nothing to sit down to," Evelyn said. "You missed it." Mom's hand shot out, fast, like she could grab the words out of the air before they landed. "Evie, don't." But my sister had been holding this in too long. You could see it in the way her fingers dug into the back of the chair. The way her eyes shone, not with tears, but with something sharper. "You can't keep doing this," she said to him. "Coming home late, stinking of that bar, thinking we don't know where you are." The world narrowed to the kitchen. The little buzzing light. The wet coat on the hook. Danny's wide eyes. "Watch your mouth," my father said. Evelyn laughed again. This time, it was high and cracked. "Do you want me to say it plain?" she asked. To say her name? Her. Even then, I understood there was a her. The woman whose perfume sometimes clung to my father's collar. The one whose number Mom had found on a napkin in his pocket 6 months before. Mom had hidden that napkin in her Bible. I know because I saw it, peeking out between the Psalms. We had all been living with the ghost of that name. "Enough," Mom snapped. "There are children here." "Your children," Evelyn shot back. "Maybe you should start telling them the truth." My father's face went red. Not the flushed red of someone shy or embarrassed. The deep, dangerous red of someone about to explode. He slammed his fist on the table. Danny's glass of milk toppled, spreading a white river across his drawings. "Get that suitcase out of my house," he roared. "And wipe that look off your face, or so help me." Mom stepped between them. I can still see the tremor in her hands. "Charles," she said quietly, "please." But the thing about a storm is, once it has gathered over you, it doesn't care about "please." "Go to your room, Margaret," my father barked. "Take your brother." I stood up automatically. My legs felt made of sand. "Come on, Danny," I whispered. He stayed rooted to the chair, eyes glued to our father. "Now." I tugged at his sleeve. We shuffled down the hallway, our socks silent on the worn rug. But we didn't go all the way. We stopped just out of sight. The way kids do. Because we were afraid to be in the room. And more afraid not to know what was happening there. From the hallway, I heard it all. "Is this about that nonsense again?" my father demanded. "You think you know anything about my life?" "I know enough," Evelyn said. "I know you've been seeing her for months. I know you took money from Mom's cookie jar to give to her. I know you promised you'd leave us and go live with her when I turned 21. The air left my lungs. 21. That was the year my life was supposed to come apart. Mom's voice came thin and breaking. Evie, that's not true. Tell me that's not true. Silence. Then a chair scraping backward. Where did you hear that? My father growled. I heard you, Evelyn said. On the phone. In the garage. You don't even lower your voice anymore. The rain hammered the roof like it wanted in. What do you do when you realize the grown-ups in your life have been living a whole other story behind the one they let you see? I pressed my back against the hallway wall. The old wallpaper rough and peeling under my fingers. Put the suitcase away, he said. You're not going anywhere. Yes, Evelyn replied. I am. Mom told me to go stay with Aunt June until you figure yourself out. My father laughed, but there was no joy in it. Ruth, he said. You told her that? Mom didn't answer right away. I imagine her looking at the floor. At the cracked linoleum that had known more of her tears than we ever did. I said, Mom finally whispered, that I will not watch you hurt these kids. If you want to run off with her, you go. But you don't drag my daughter into the middle of it. Another silence. You could hear the refrigerator humming. The rain. Danny's shallow breathing beside me. You ungrateful, my father started, then his voice turned into a roar I couldn't make out. Dishes rattled. Something, a plate, I think, shattered on the floor. I peeked around the corner just in time to see Evelyn grab the suitcase handle. Her eyes met mine over Mom's shoulder. She looked different. Not scared. Not exactly angry. Resolved. Like someone standing on the edge of a bridge who has finally decided which way to step. Don't, Evie, I whispered. She mouthed words I didn't understand then. I have to. My father lunged forward, grabbing for the suitcase. For a second, it was a tug of war. His big mechanic's hands. Her smaller, stubborn ones. Charles. Mom cried. You're drunk, let her go. I am her father, he shouted. She doesn't move 1 inch without my say-so. The handle slipped from Evelyn's grasp and the suitcase flew open. Clothes spilling like a wave across the kitchen floor. A photograph skidded to rest at my father's boot. He looked down. I saw his shoulders drop. It was a picture of all of us. Him, Mom, Evelyn, me, Danny. Taken one summer before things got bad. We were at the county fair. Sticky with cotton candy. Sunburned and laughing. For a tiny moment. Something soft flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone. He kicked the photo aside. That's it, he said, voice suddenly low and terrifyingly calm. You like walking out so much? Fine. I'll show you what leaving looks like. He strode to the wall, grabbed his car keys. And yanked his coat back on. Where are you going? Mom demanded. To settle this. With who? Evelyn called after him. Her. He didn't answer. The front door flew open. A gust of cold, wet air rushing in. And then he was gone. We listened to his boots on the porch. To the slam of the screen door. To the cough of the truck's engine. Then the roar as he peeled out into the night. Rain rushed into the silence he left behind. Mom stood very still in the middle of the kitchen. Evelyn slowly crouched, gathering her clothes. Her hands shaking. I stepped back into the room. Danny trailed behind me. His sock slipping on the spilled milk. Mom? I whispered. She blinked, like she'd forgotten we were there. Go to bed, she said hollowly. All of you. Just, go to bed. But Dad. Now, Margaret. Her voice had that dangerous edge. We obeyed. In my room, I lay awake. Watching headlights occasionally smear across the wall. As cars pushed through the storm on Maple Street. Somewhere, a siren wailed, faint but insistent. I told myself it was nothing. Sirens happened all the time. I fell asleep with the taste of metal in my mouth. Like I'd been sucking on coins. When the phone rang, it was 2:17 a.m. I know because I saw the red digital numbers glowing on my alarm clock. Mom answered on the second ring. Her voice traveled down the hallway, thin and frightened. Hello? A pause. This is she. Another pause. Then a sound tore out of her that no child should ever hear from their mother. It wasn't words. It was like the sound of something inside her breaking open. I slid out of bed. My nightgown too cold against my legs. And padded to the hallway. Mom's hand covered her mouth. The phone receiver shook against her ear. Evelyn stood behind her. One hand on the wall like she needed it to stay upright. Danny peered from his doorway, hair sticking up. What? I asked. What happened? Mom's eyes were huge and unfocused. The police, she whispered. There was an accident. Your father. He went off the road on County Line. He didn't make it. The words hung there. Didn't make it. As if he'd been running a race and just stopped. I don't remember falling to my knees, but suddenly I was on the floor. Dad. Gone. The house, already unsteady, seemed to tilt. Then Mom turned. And she looked right at Evelyn. This is your fault, she said. The hallway went silent. Not even the house dared to make a noise. Evelyn recoiled like she'd been slapped. Mom, she whispered, no. I didn't. He went after you. Mom screamed. He went to drag you back home, to fix what you started. If you hadn't packed that damn suitcase, if you hadn't pushed him. Her voice cracked, then came back sharper. You killed your father. I heard Evelyn sob, no. Over and over, a tiny word trying to hold back an ocean. But the sentence had been spoken. In a house that didn't keep secrets. Mom had just written the first line of the story. We would all be forced to live in. By the time the sun rose. Evelyn was gone. Her suitcase finally closed. No note. Just an empty closet and a story. She had run away after killing our father. That is the version I carried for 60 years. It's the version I told my children. When they asked why they didn't have an Aunt Evelyn at Christmas. It's the version my brother Danny drank over. Raged over. Let harden in his chest like a stone. And all that time. My mother said the same sentence whenever Evelyn's name came up. We don't talk about that night. But there were things I didn't see that night. Moments just out of my view in that narrow hallway. Words spoken after I'd been sent to bed. And now, in this final letter. My mother claims she is finally going to tell me what really happened. I bring the envelope closer. My breath feels loud in my own ears. Margaret, the front says in that familiar looped handwriting. Underneath, smaller. For when you are ready to hear the whole story. I thought I was ready the day we buried her. I wasn't. I put this letter in a drawer. Closed it. Walked away. Because what if the story you've built your whole life around is wrong? What does that make you? Tonight, though, my hands won't listen to my fear. They slide under the flap. They tear. Inside is 3 pages of lined stationery. Folded twice. My mother's handwriting marching across them in careful blue ink. I unfold the first page. At the top, she's written. My dear Margaret. If you are reading this, I am gone, and it is too late for me to do this looking you in the eye. I am a coward for that. But I am more of a coward for what I did the night your father died. The words blur for a second. I blink them back into focus. First, she's written, you need to know this. Your father did not die because he went after Evelyn. He did not die trying to save this family. He died because he was leaving it. My stomach flips. Leaving us? All those years. I pictured him white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Wet road. Head full of anger and fear for his runaway daughter. Now my mother is telling me he was, what? Driving toward another life? The air in the kitchen feels thin. I read on. That week, she wrote, I found a letter in his jacket. Not like this one. A love letter from her. The woman he'd been seeing. She wrote about their little apartment across town. The deposit they'd put down. How she couldn't wait until you children were old enough that he wouldn't feel so guilty. The image slices through me. Dad in some other kitchen. Laughing, relaxed. No ticking clock on the wall. No storm outside. No Evelyn with her too red lipstick calling him to account. I confronted him 3 days before he died, the letter continues. He said terrible things. He said he was tired of being tied down. That he had wasted his best years. That he deserved to be happy. I asked about you and Danny and Evelyn. He said, they'll live. My hands shake so badly I have to set the page down. My father as I knew him. The one who fixed my broken bike, who taught me to skip stones. Never said words like that. But the thing about a person is, you only ever see the pieces they let you see. The letter goes on. I told him if he wanted to go, he should go. But I would not let him twist our children into thinking it was their fault. He laughed and said I couldn't control what they believed if he didn't come back. We screamed at each other in the driveway like strangers. Evelyn heard. She was in her room with the door open. Later she came to me, calm as you please. And said, Mom, if he's going to leave, let me go to Aunt June's. I can help with the kids there. You'll only have 2 to worry about if he walks out. Aunt June lived 2 towns over. We went there some summers. Came back smelling like hay and sun. She was trying to make it easier for me, Mom wrote. She was always trying to make things easier for me. I stop. Evelyn, the villain of our family legend. Trying to help. 2 nights before the accident. I told her yes. I told her to pack a small bag. Said we'd send the rest later. I told her we'd say she was helping Aunt June because June's arthritis was worse. So my mother had known about the suitcase. She had told her to pack it. But the day your father died, the letter continues. He went to the bank. I know this because the teller called me after. He emptied our savings without telling me. When he came home that night and saw the suitcase by the door, he thought Evelyn was leaving in anger. Telling the world what he had done. He thought she would ruin his name in this town. He didn't realize she was leaving because I asked her to. He didn't realize she was trying to make room in this sinking little boat of a family. So the rest of you could stay afloat. I can hear the storm again in my memory. The raised voices. All I wanted that night, my mother's letter says, was a few more hours to figure out how to keep your world from collapsing. When he grabbed his keys. When he stormed out. I thought he was going to the bar again. Or to her. I did not know he would take the old county road. I did not know his tires were bald. That the rain had made the sharp bend by Miller's farm slick as glass. When the phone rang at 2:17. And the officer said the words single vehicle accident and alcohol in his system. My first thought was not grief. It was this. Thank God the children will never know. I close my eyes. My chest hurts. Margaret, she wrote. The moment I hung up that phone, I made a decision that I have regretted every day since. I chose to protect your father's memory. Instead of protecting the living child standing right in front of me. I turned. And I saw Evelyn. And I thought of the suitcase. And the argument. And the way your father shouted that she was tearing this family apart. So I picked up his words and I used them as a weapon. I looked at my own daughter and said, this is your fault. I watched her break. I watched all of you believe me. The kitchen around me now is not the same kitchen as then. The wallpaper is different. The clock is digital. The storm outside is long gone. But suddenly I am 16 again. Knees on the hallway floor. Hearing my mother's sentence for the first time. I thought it was the truth. It was, in fact, a choice. A cruel, cowardly choice. The letter goes on. She tried to argue with me, Mom wrote. She said, Mom, that's not fair. You know he. And I cut her off. I said, get out. If you're so set on leaving, then go. You have already done enough damage here. She called Aunt June. June came in the morning, furious with me. But Evelyn wouldn't let her argue. She said, it's done. And then she left. We had always imagined Evelyn slipping away in the night. Running down Maple Street in the rain. Heartless, ungrateful. The truth? She left in the morning with our aunt. Suitcase in hand. Face pale and stunned. After being told she had killed her own father. Mom's letter shakes in my hand. I thought, she wrote, that I was saving you and Danny and Margaret. From knowing your father chose someone else over you. I thought children should be allowed to love their father without that stain. So I let you believe that Evelyn's temper. Her questions. Her refusal to play along. Were what killed him. I turned your grief into a wall between you and your sister. I told myself I had no choice. But the truth is, Margaret, I did. And I chose wrong. I reach for the glass of water by the lamp. My hand misses. I laugh shakily at myself. Wipe the spill with the sleeve of my sweater. You have to understand, the letter says. I loved your father. Even after everything. I loved the man he had been. The one who came home from the war thin and scared and tried so hard. I could not bear to watch that man turn into the villain of your childhood. So I made Evelyn the villain instead. I think of my children. My grandchildren. The stories I have told them about wild Aunt Evelyn, who ran off and never called. What do you do when you realize you were the sword and the shield of a lie? The pages rustle as I turn to the second sheet. My punishment, Mom wrote, was watching you all pay the price. I watched Danny grow hard and quiet. I watched you flinch every time someone raised their voice. I watched Christmas dinners with an empty chair that no one acknowledged. Do you remember the Thanksgiving when you were 22? Home from college with that boy with the floppy hair you liked? He asked where your sister was. You told him, we don't talk about her. I went to my room and cried so hard I thought I would die. Not because you said it. But because I had taught you to. Scenes tumble through my mind. The Christmas we pretended we were too busy to invite Aunt June. Knowing she was still close to Evelyn. The wedding where half the pews on the bride's side were filled with people I didn't know. Because my own sister wasn't there. The year my daughter asked why Grandma gets quiet whenever a car skids on ice in a movie. We lived around the wound. We set the table so there was always one less chair. We made little rules we never explained. We don't bring up that night. We don't say her name in front of Grandma. Silence became our family tradition. Mom writes about it all. I watched you raise your children with questions you never dared to ask me. I watched Danny drink himself into the hospital more than once. One night, when he was very drunk, he shouted at me. You killed him as much as she did, you know. I slapped him. But he wasn't wrong. I killed the father you thought you had. And I killed the sister you could have had. All to keep you from seeing the truth about a man who was already gone. I hear Danny's voice in my memory. From that one bitter phone call in our 40s. She didn't just lose a husband, he had said. She lost her favorite excuse. I hadn't understood then. I do now. The letter grows shakier as it goes. Her words stumble, circle back, as if she's trying to hold too much regret in too few sentences. Last month, she writes, I got a letter from Evelyn. Yes. She has been writing to me, on and off, for years. Most of them I did not answer. Sometimes I would write 2 lines and then tear them up. She lives 3 states away now. She has 2 sons and a granddaughter you would like. In her last letter, she wrote, Mom, I'm tired. My doctor says my heart isn't good. I would like to see Margaret and Danny once more. But I don't know if they would even spit on me if I caught fire. She wrote, I forgave you years ago for the words you said that night. What I cannot forgive is that you let them believe it. I stopped breathing for a moment. Evelyn forgave her. My throat tightens. She asked me, Mom continues, to please tell you the truth. She said, you are old now. What do you think you are protecting them from? I read that letter 3 times. Then I had my stroke. The doctors said it was small. I laughed at that. Nothing about this is small. I knew then that if I didn't leave this behind for you, I would die a coward twice over. The edges of the final page crinkle where her tears must have fallen as she wrote. I am asking you, Margaret, she writes now, to do what I was too weak to do while I could still look you in the eye. Tell Danny. Tell your children. Tell anyone who grew up in the shadow of that night. Tell them your father was a man with good parts and bad parts. And that the bad parts killed him. Tell them your sister was a stubborn, loud, infuriating girl, who loved you fiercely and tried to do right by you, even when I did not. Tell them the story I forced you to live was a lie. I will not ask you to forgive me. I have no right. But if there is any mercy in you, let the truth be the thing that runs in this family from now on. Not my cowardice. With all the love I did not know how to give you properly. Mom. The room is so quiet I can hear the refrigerator click on in the next room. My mother is gone. My father has been gone for decades. Somewhere, if she is still alive. My sister has been carrying this weight on the other side of the country. Wondering if we even remember the sound of her name. And here I am, alone at my kitchen table. Holding 3 thin pages that rearrange the entire map of my life. What do I do with that? What would you do? The first thing I do is cry. Not tidy movie tears. The ugly kind. I press the heel of my hand to my mouth. And sob out all the years I spent hating a girl who was only a few rooms away from me. Packing a suitcase because our mother asked her to. I cry for the 16-year-old me, who needed someone to blame, and reached for the easiest hand. I cry for my children. For every time I said, you don't understand, she hurt your grandmother. As if that was the whole story. I cry for my mother. For the version of herself that might have been. If she had made a different choice that night. Then I do something I have spent 60 years avoiding. I pick up the phone. The numbers for Danny are still taped to the fridge. Smudged from years of reach. He answers on the 3rd ring. Voice gravelly. Yeah? Danny, I say. And my voice comes out small, like a child's. It's Margaret. Pause. Hey, sis. Another pause. You okay? No, I say bluntly. No, I don't think I am. Mom left me a letter. You too, he mutters. For a second, I think I misheard. You, got one? Yeah. In that box of scarves she wanted me to have. Been sitting on my dresser since the funeral. Haven't opened it. There's a strange comfort in that. Knowing I wasn't the only one who couldn't face a few sheets of paper. Danny, I say. You need to read it. His sigh crackles down the line. That bad? That different. He is quiet for a long time. I always wondered, he finally admits. If we got the whole story. I remember seeing Mom burn a letter the week before Dad died. I never told you. She was out back by the trash can. holding this envelope, crying. She fed it to the flames like it was a snake she had to get rid of. I asked her what it was. She said, adult business. And then. That night. The accident. Evelyn. I thought. If we started picking at it, everything would come apart. Everything did come apart. We just pretended the pieces were exactly where they should be. Read her letter, I repeat. Then come over tomorrow. Bring Lisa and the kids. I think I might try to see Evelyn. He lets out a breath that's half laugh, half sob. After all this? After all this, I say. If she's gone already, I need to know I tried. If she's still here, I need to stop being the kind of sister our mother turned me into. We hang up with promises we both might break. But at least they're spoken. The next morning, my dining room table is fuller than it has been in a long time. My son David sits on one side, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee he isn't drinking. His wife, Maria, beside him. Across from them, my daughter Anna. Her hair streaked with gray now. Eyes red from crying in the car on the drive over. Danny is at the head of the table. Lisa next to him. Their teenage granddaughter scrolling nervously on her phone until we ask her to put it away. In the middle of the table, like a guest of honor, lies my mother's letter. Folded but not hidden. I asked you here, I begin. Because there's something I have to tell you. Something I should have told you a very long time ago. My voice shakes, but I keep my eyes on Anna's. You asked me once, I say to her. Why you never had an Aunt Evelyn at your recitals. Why we never drove out to see her. I told you she was selfish. That she ran out when things got hard. That was not the truth. I look at Danny. Do you want to? He nods, surprising me. He takes the letter with his calloused hands. I read mine last night, he says quietly. Same story. Mom lied to us. About Dad. About Evelyn. About that night. He walks them through it. Paragraph by paragraph. His voice sometimes breaking. He tells them about the other woman. About the half-packed suitcase. About the way our mother turned her fear into a weapon. Occasionally he glances at me. As if to check that I'm still there. Still nodding. I am. By the time he finishes. Anna has both hands over her mouth. David stares at the table. Maria wipes her eyes with a napkin. Teenage Lily, who never met any of these ghosts, whispers. So she wasn't the bad guy? No, I say. No. She was a kid who tried to stand up for the truth. And we made her pay for it. I made her pay for it. I chose Mom's version of events. Because it was the only one I had. And along the way, I turned her into a warning instead of a person. I take a breath. I'm sorry, I tell my children. I'm sorry for every time I told you not to ask questions. I'm sorry for the way I shut you down when you tried. I thought I was being loyal. To my mother. To my father. But loyalty built on a lie is just another kind of prison. The room holds that sentence like a fragile thing. David finally looks up. Are you going to find her? He asks. If I can, I say. If she's still findable. So. We had an aunt this whole time? Lily says softly. Yes, I answer. And you deserve to know her. You still might, if she'll let us. Anna reaches across the table and takes my hand. Her fingers squeeze mine. I'm glad you told us, Mom, she whispers. It hurts. But I think. It hurts less than not knowing. I nod, tears spilling over. That afternoon, after the house has emptied of bodies but not of echoes. I sit back down at the table with an address book. And a laptop my grandson made me buy last year. I call Aunt June's old number. Disconnected. I search Evelyn's name online. There are too many. I dig through a shoebox of old Christmas cards. Until I find one with a return address in a town 3 states away. The card inside is from 15 years ago. Thinking of you, it says, no signature other than a careful E. I write a letter. Dear Evelyn, I begin. Then cross it out. Dear Evie. Then cross that out too. Finally, I write. Sis. The words don't come easily. But they come. I just read Mom's final letter, I write. I am so sorry it took me this long to look past my own pain and see yours. You did not kill our father. He killed himself, in slow choices, long before that rain. You did not walk out on us. We pushed you out and then pretended we hadn't. If you can find it in your heart to hear from me, I would like to see you before one of us runs out of time. I tell her about my children. About Danny's grandkids. I tuck in a photograph from my last birthday. Me with a cake. Lily making rabbit ears behind my head. I address the envelope to that old town. Not knowing if she still lives there. If she's alive. If the letter will bounce back, return to sender, with a cold stamp. Then I walk to the mailbox. Feet slow but steady. Each step feels like rewriting one line of a very old script. Time, at my age, is a strange thing. Weeks can feel like minutes. Minutes like years. Every day, I check the mail. Bills. Catalogs. A flyer for a grocery store 3 towns over. No reply. I tell myself that this, too, is a kind of answer. Maybe she read it and decided she was done with us. Maybe she never got it. Maybe the post office lost it between here and there. And it's sitting in some sorting facility with 100 other stories that never arrived. One afternoon, a month later. My grandson drops by unannounced to fix the leaky faucet. When he's under the sink, wrench clanking. The doorbell rings. I am not expecting anyone. My heart does that little old lady flutter it does now when something surprises me. I open the door. On my porch stands a woman with my father's eyes. And my mother's stubborn set to her chin. Her hair is white, pulled back. Her hands thin and spotted like mine. She holds a cane in one hand. And in the other. My letter. It took the long way here, she says. Voice shaky but familiar somehow. But so did we. Evie, I breathe. No, she says, and smiles with a sadness I recognize in my own reflection. Not for a long time. But for you, I suppose I can be. We stand there, 2 old women on a porch. Decades of hurt piled up between the doormat and the living room. Then I step aside. Come in, I say. She does. We don't fix everything in one conversation. How could we? There are too many years missing. Too many Christmases, too many weddings, too many phone calls that never happened. We sit at my kitchen table, the same table. Older now. Scarred with knife marks and ringed with coffee stains. Between us lie 2 letters. Mom's confession. Mine to Evelyn. We talk. We talk about that night. She tells me how, after Mom's words, she slept at Aunt June's for 3 days straight. Waking up with her father's truck headlights still blazing through her dreams. She tells me about the moment, 5 years later, when she realized Mom was never going to take those words back. She tells me about starting her own family. About choosing to tell her sons the truth, not the polished version, but the messy one. Did it make them hate him? I ask, small. No, she says gently. It made them human. It made them understand that you can love someone and still see what they did wrong. Mom never learned that. We sit in silence for a moment. The clock ticking between us like a metronome. I'm sorry, I say again, because there is no other sentence big enough. I know, she replies. I forgave you a long time ago. Even before you asked. What I wanted. What I still want. Is for you to forgive yourself enough to stop passing the lie down the line. We decide, together. To tell the grandchildren. To let them ask questions. To say Dad's name out loud without flinching. To say Evelyn's name like she belongs at this table. We won't get another 60 years to practice. But we have today. As I sit here now. Near the end of this long story. The envelope that started it all is folded carefully in a small wooden box. With my own letters. Labeled in my shaky handwriting. For whoever finds this next. Because there is one more thing I want to say. Not just to my family. But to you, listening to an old woman's memories tonight. Secrets do not keep families together. They just make the distance between us quieter. If there is a night in your life that everyone tiptoes around. If there is a name no one says. A story that cuts off midway. Ask. Ask gently, ask kindly. But ask. Because the story you've been handed. Might not be the one that really happened. And you deserve to live in the truth. Even if it stings. More than you deserve the comfort of a lie. That leaves you blaming the wrong person for the rest of your life. My mother's final letter did not fix everything. It did not bring my father back. It did not give me back the years with my sister that we lost to silence. But it gave me something I never expected to have at this age. A chance to begin again. Honest this time. If you've stayed with me all this way. Thank you for sitting at this table with me. For letting me unfold these pages in front of you. If my story stirred something in you. If you thought of your own letters. Your own Maple Street. Your own night the family shattered. Please take a moment to like this video. It helps more wandering hearts find their way here. To Dust of Old Days. Where we keep these quiet, heavy stories company. And if you'd like to hear more grandmother-style stories. More letters pulled from old boxes. More nights that broke us and the mornings that slowly put us back together. Consider subscribing to Dust of Old Days. This little corner of the internet is where we remember. And reckon. And sometimes. Forgive. As for me. When I'm gone. I hope my grandchildren find this box. This letter. These words. I hope they say. She tried. She told the truth when it finally knocked loud enough. And I hope. If they ever stand in a doorway. With an envelope in their trembling hands. They open it. They read it. They tell everything. And they choose. Not the easier story. But the honest one. Because in the end. It isn't the letter that breaks a family apart. It's the ones we never read.